Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. The pandemic has caused a lot of us to shift our focuses, changing our career path, and so much more. And then during this time, many people had to learn how to homeschool their children. And since then, many parents have considered continuing their kids' education at home. And however, making this transition can be challenging and then even like nerve-wracking for parents. And that's why we're really glad today to be joined by Emma Carsey. And Emma actually homeschools her children. She's also an advocate for Hugh and Grace. This week it's almost become a impromptu Hugh and Grace week. And here, like we had Jennifer Cicci on our live on Tuesday. So we're really excited today to talk to Emma about her experience while homeschooling, as well as some of her favorite Hugh and Grace products. So I saw she just. Hello, hi Emma.
Hi, Jenna.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Thank you so much. Good. Thank you so much for joining us. This is
Thank-
a really exciting topic.
I know it's fun.
Yeah, it's a lot. I just did a little bit intro, but before we get to real homeschooling stuff, tell us a little bit about yourself and then how you ended up like homeschooling your kids full time.
Yeah. So I'm Emma Carsey. Like Jenna said, I live in Southwest Ohio, with my husband and three kids. Uh, I my degree is in political science. My background is in nonprofit work, but I've actually always wanted to homeschool, and I'm sure we'll touch on that. And so that's how I came to be a homeschool mom.
So how many kids do you have and like what are their ages?
Yeah, so I have my oldest is a girl, she's 7, and then I have two little boys, a 4-year-old and 15 months.
Oh wow.
Yeah, we
Uh,
have full hands over here.
Look like you have a lot of fun, like adventures on your Instagram. And then so what's a typical weekend adventure like in your household?
Yeah, thanks. We try, and we really try to preserve the weekends for our family, and we like to go outside. I am huge on as much as we can do outside. Uh, so we might go find a new park or a new hiking trail. We actually in the spring finally got everything we needed to become a biking family. So now we can take everybody biking. And that is always fun for us.
Including the 15 months. So I guess he
Yeah,
would be
he gets a ride. He gets bike.
nice, nice. So were you homeschooled as a kid?
I was not. I was actually a public school kid, K through 12, which is part of why I actually wanted to homeschool. And my husband was homeschooled K through 12. And this was something that we talked about when we were dating, because I've always felt passionate about doing this. And because of his background, he was on board. And so it worked out.
Like what are the things you consider like before you make the decision to homeschool your kid?
Yeah. I mean, it, there's so much to think about, right? It's truly not for everyone. But for me, like I shared, I was a public school kid, and school was great. Went to a great school district. I graduated at the top of the class, National Honor Society, all good things. But I also just really struggled to sit at a desk all day. And even though I did well, I wasn't super challenged. I really struggled my freshman year of college, because I didn't have study skills and time management skills. Um, and I just remember thinking, like, I want my kids to be able to just like go, to just be
Yeah.
free. And so, like, for me, the idea of, okay, if we're studying the Civil War, to be able to go to Gettysburg or just more tangible hands on opportunities. And really a lot of that. And I think one of the reasons a lot of parents choose to homeschool, it just comes down to flexibility. We really have a lot of flexibility, and it's hard to say no to that.
Yeah, and then you can go to vacation whenever you want. That's
Yes,
the best part, probably.
we start school whenever we want. I see everyone going back to school this week, and we actually have vacation coming up. So our summer is not over yet.
Oh wow, wow, lucky, lucky.
Yeah.
So a lot of like people who consider like a homeschooling their kids like start getting a bit of like, imposter syndrome. Like, is that something that you had to combat or not really?
Yes. And honestly, I don't know that that ever goes away. Because I don't have a background in education. And so my oldest is going to be in first grade this year, and she learned to read last year. And I remember thinking, like, I don't remember anything about font, like, just the basics. Like, I have no idea. But I have to remember, like, this is a desire that my husband and I have. So I think first, like, if it's something that you're considering, like a desire that you have, and then also, like, these children were chosen for me, and I think I'm the best person to school them. And again, that's not for everyone, but I
Mhm.
think if one, if you have the desire, and two, like, your children best. And also, and maybe this will come up later, but not every kid will thrive at home.
Right.
Uh, and that's something to be considered, but those things at least encourage me, that, like, I know my children and hopefully I can serve them well. And I will say my daughter learned to read, and it was just neat at the end of our school year when we did our assessment. My assessor even said, like, you taught her this, like, isn't that cool? And that was just very encouraging for me.
Oh, but how does one even start this process? Like, is there like paperwork? You just mentioned like assessors. So like, is there
Yeah.
any paperwork like potential parents need to like should know like about before starting this process?
Yes. So it does vary state to state. I'm in Ohio, and some states have stricter homeschool laws, some states aren't as strict. Ohio's kind of middle of the road, and you have to submit it's called an NOI, or notice of intent, to your superintendent before the school year begins. And there are requirements of, like, what goes in that form. And then at the end of the school year, you can either choose to have your child assessed by a licensed teacher, or they can test. And so we met with an assessor, and that was a great experience. And so when I went to submit my NOI this year, I also included my assessment from last year. But it does vary state to state. So make sure you know your state laws.
Oh, wow. So is there a specific training you need to have, like, or curriculum that you need to follow?
That also varies state to state. In Ohio, I know one of the requirements is the schooling parent has to have at least a high school diploma. There are a couple other criterias. Um, I have to commit to the state that I will cover certain subjects, but it's very general, like math, reading, and state history. It's not, super specific. And then in Ohio, we also have to commit to 900 hours of education. Um, but that's the beauty of homeschool, and really life is education. Like,
Right.
anytime, um, and so that's at least what's required in Ohio.
I felt like I learned the most when my parents took me on to vacations. Like if you go to a new place, you kind of have to do a research and then you learn more about the culture, the history, and everything. It's like feels like it also stick to you much longer than compare you what you just learn in school and like in a book.
And there is data that backs that, that those hands-on experiences sometimes stick with us, because you're also not being forced to learn something that you might not retain later. Um, and there's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah. So what was your first day of teaching like?
So last year was kindergarten, and I'll just let you know that my curriculum had not arrived by the first day. So that's like your first hint to how it went. And fortunately, like, the first year is kinder, so it's a little more relaxed. And there was a huge learning curve. Like, we actually wanted to test our kiddo instead of having her assessed, and I was too late. Like, I was, if so, everything's a learning curve. Um, and then also I have the boys. So like, I remember my 4-year-old, he was I was not prepared for what to do with him. You know, oh, you need something to do. So, it's a huge learning curve, but there's so much grace and there's so much patience. And even on those hard days, like just reminding yourself, like, even if we go to the kitchen and bake cookies or we take a walk or we just run up to the library, like, it's all education. So just in life, there are good days and there are bad days.
I can just see you teaching them like food science like while baking.
Yes, we science.
This is awesome. So how do you like balance, teaching your kids because they're at different ages? So like how did you deal with that at the same time?
So last year I had a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. Um, the 3-year-old was definitely more difficult than the 1-year-old, and they're busy at that age, right? Like they are into everything. So I had to have stuff available for him. He was not interested in doing worksheets, which was totally fine, but he would sit at the table with us and we would do magnets or the whiteboard or kinetic sand, or just coloring, just like finding things to keep him busy. And I will share, like, some days he just watched TV, and that's okay too. Like, when you have lots of kids at home, sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. Um,
Yeah.
so there were definitely days of screen time, and then the baby was usually either with me, snacking, or asleep. Um, but I don't really sit down when we're doing school, and that's like a hot tip. Just be prepared to not sit.
The baby's like already learning, fourth grade level
Yeah,
math, by sitting with you.
I will say that was something that was really cool. Um, my middle kiddo, his name's Elias, how much he actually picked up just from being around. He would say things, and I was like, "Oh, like I realized that stuck with you." So that was really neat too.
That is so cool. Is it hard for you to, switch from your mom hat to your teacher hat?
No, because I think really it's just like I shared that I view all of life as learning. And so whether we're in the kitchen or we're on a hike or we're at the museum or just having play dates, like they're learning. Um, and so I think more than anything, the hardest part was just those days when I needed extra patience. Like if we were learning something that was difficult, when you're juggling two other kids. I was actually telling a friend this morning at the park, like one thing I learned for me is I do best in the morning. Like by the end of the day, my patience is frayed. And so out of the way, that was just something that was really helpful for us. So, um, but yeah, we're always learning.
So how long do you plan to homeschool them?
I mean, I would love to do K through 12, but I always say year by year and kid by kid. And I mentioned earlier, like, not every kid is going to thrive at homeschool. And part of that also depends on the parent teaching. Some are more structured than others, and some aren't. And maybe the child would thrive with structure, or maybe they need less structure. My oldest is super social. And so I told my husband it wouldn't surprise me when she's older if she asks to go to school.
Mhm.
Um, but I think one thing that's really cool is there are so many options nowadays. Like even where I live, in Southwest Ohio, we have a lot of hybrid options.
Oh,
Yeah, so you could just send your kids for like one or two classes. There are several nature schools, several Montessori schools. So just we really as parents have so many options today, and that's tremendous.
that's really good to know that you can kind of switch or having like a hybrid version and then depending on your kids.
Yes. Yeah.
This is
And
really cool.
yeah, just because you start with one thing doesn't mean you have to end that way.
That's good. And then that could, if you get tired, it could give a parents a break. While you're out.
And you can send your kids to school for a year and then maybe decide to keep them home with you the next year. Like if anything really is okay.
This is so cool. This is so cool. Okay, now we're gonna switch topic. I know this is like I feel like I could ask a million questions about homeschooling, but given the time, so I'm mentioning in the introduction that you're also an advocate for Hugh and Grace. So what drew you to become an advocate?
So I found Hugh and Grace because I was actually looking for a simple skincare routine. I came to social media 5 years ago, and my little corner here, I teach about stewardship and why what we put on and in our bodies matters. And Hugh and Grace is hormone safe. So we don't use any ingredients that include hormone disruptors, which was really the icing on the cake for me. Two-step regimen is what I'm here for, but then the fact that the products are hormone safe was just like, I'm in.
Simple.
Yes, yeah.
So
Simple is what we need.
right, right. Considering you homeschool 3 kids, like
Yes.
this is a lot of work. That's everything else simple.
Yeah, I don't have 30 minutes to spend in the bathroom in the morning and at night.
So how do others become advocate then?
Yeah, that's a great question. You can enroll on the website. If you have questions, I would be happy to chat. You can message me when Jenna and I are done chatting. And actually, this month there is a special that it's only $25 to enroll.
Nice, nice. So what's your go-to favorite product from Hugh and Grace?
The Renewing Night Serum because it has blue tansy in it, and I am a sucker for blue tansy.
That's also my favorite one.
Yes, it smells so good.
It's really nice. And then the second day you feel like really, really smooth your skin.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, this is so cool. But thank you so much for all these great tips, Emma.
Thank you for having me, Jenna.
Yeah, this is really fun. We might have to bring you back to talk more about like, different age kids and how do you deal
Yes.
with each one.
Yes, I would love that.
Yeah, and then thank you everyone for joining. So be sure to follow Emma at Emma Carsey. And then you can learn more about, Emma's favorite product, enroll in Hugh and Grace and becoming an advocate by clicking our link in bio and follow Emma. Get great tips on homeschooling.
Thank you so much, Jenna.
Thank you. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.